Okay, guys. I'm coming to you today as very serious and very frustrated person, as I am a fan of the Atlanta Falcons. So I'm going to be discussing my issues after that Jets loss that was just extremely heartbreaking. Um, I believe we personally need to clear house. I think the issues with the offense have been absolutely ridiculous. The issues with coaching has been ridiculous. The issues with management has been ridiculous. And I personally believe that Raheem Morris is not the guy. I think Raheem Morris has failed this team on multiple circumstances. Um, I think he's constantly outcoached. He's constantly it's he is constantly underperforming in every aspect, which for me personally, I believe is ridiculous considering he is a you would expect, I mean, with this hire for Raheem Morris, the Falcons expected way better historically for record wise. This is a coach who I would like to tell you has been a coordinator under these specific head coaches. I'll start from worst to best. He was a secondary coordinator. He was a defensive back coordinator for Jay Gruden whenever they were in the Washington Redskins. He was a assistant defensive back, defensive assistants, defensive backs coordinator, and defensive quality control coordinator under John Gruden, a coach who yes has been under hot water, but he's a Super Bowl winning head coach, as well as he's been a defensive coordinator for Sean McVay, who personally is one of, if not the best coach in the NFL today. I think it's arguably up there right now with Andy Reid. He has as well been an assistant head coach, defensive passing game coordinator, the assistant head coach slash wide receiver coach, passing game coordinator, and defensive coordinator and interim head coach. All under the Falcons, by the way, with Dan Quinn. And then he as well was a secondary coach under Mike Shanahan. This guy is a part of a tree with legendary head coaches. Yes, Dan Quinn's not legendary, but let's get it right. This year has kind of been a wash with Dan Quinn and the Washington Commanders. He's definitely had a bad year, but also you can kind of forgive him with the injuries he's had on offense with Jaden Daniels going out. But the team is also very old. I think Dan Quinn was one of the better Falcons coaches as he brought us to a Super Bowl. Um, but that's another topic. I believe that Raheem Morris being signed to the Falcons to come back, there was a lot higher expectations, and he's just extremely disappointed. Every Falcons fan out here. Um, I think they need to clean house. I think they need to clean house. I think it's very clear that Atlanta needs a new head coach. They need a new general manager. I think it all needs to go. And this isn't me saying the Falcons have drafted poorly, but also we do need to talk about Terry Fontenot. Terry Fontenot has been the general manager for the Atlanta Falcons. This is his fifth year, and all 5 years he has never had a winning season with the Atlanta Falcons. He had three straight seasons where they were 7-10 under Arthur Smith, who this is the general manager who hired Arthur Smith as well. Then they went 8-9 last year in 2024, and then this season they've started 4-8. In his 5 years, they have accumulated a record of 33-47, and I think he has been good-ish at drafting. He picks very well on the defensive side, but I don't think that is a Terry Fontenot thing. I think that is also a Raheem Morris deal. As Morris is a great defensive mind. We can just go and look at the past drafts. So let's look at the very first draft that Terry Fontenot and the Atlanta Falcons put together in 2021. In 2021, they selected with their first round pick Kyle Pitts with the fourth overall. Now, I'm a big fan of Kyle Pitts. I actually liked him coming out of Florida, and I think he is a good talent, tight end wise. Um, But if I'm being honest, I think this was a very bad decision for the Atlanta Falcons, considering the draft that they had. If you go and look back at the draft, uh, the Atlanta Falcons picked Kyle Pitts over Jamar Chase, Jalen Waddle, Panay Sewell, J.C. Horn, Pat Surtain, Devontae Smith, Michael Parsons, Rashawn Slater, um, Jalen Phillips. But I mean, Jalen Phillips is probably, I think he's a little bit of a better prospect now defensively, but I would probably still take Kyle Pitts over him. Kwity Paye of the Indianapolis Colts, Christian Darrisaw, Travis Etienne, Greg Newsome, Gregory Rousseau. That there is a, I think I named at least maybe 7 to 10 players that they could have picked that would have been a bigger impact for the Atlanta Falcons, and they would have more than likely won them more games. Now, yes, Kyle Pitts did have a career year as a rookie that first season with Matt Ryan, but since then he has fallen off a cliff. Kyle Pitts has fallen off an absolute cliff, and he just looks like an average tight end at best. And it's disappointing considering how generational he was seen coming out of Florida. And I really liked him coming out of Florida. I just don't think it's helped him going to Atlanta. His first year, he had 1,000 yards, but he only had 1 touchdown. So he was just a target hog. He had 110 targets. His second year, he dealt with injuries. He missed about 7 games, but he only had 356 yards. And if you even do a rough estimate on doubling that, he's probably 600, 700 yards. Yes, I'm doing the hand motion. Then you go to 2023. He only had 2 touchdowns in that 2022 season. 2023, he only had 667 yards. And 3 touchdowns. And then in 2024, 600 yards or 602 yards, 4 touchdowns. And this year he's about on par for the same thing. He's got about 5 games left. He's probably going to do better than what he's done in the past couple seasons with Kirk Cousins targeting him. But it's just been extremely disappointing for a guy who was taken with the 4th overall pick as a tight end. You go and look at other draft selections that year as well. In the second round, they took Richie Grant, who I think it's fair to say is a bust at this point. He played 4 seasons with the Atlanta Falcons, wasn't ever really anything special, and now he's a bench warmer and a backup in New England. They also in the third round they took an offensive lineman in Jalen Mayfield, and I believe if I'm correct, he's not even in the league anymore. He's either a free agent or I think he's a backup in the Giants. I don't think he's playing anymore. That's my point. I don't think he's a starter. So that's 3 rounds of bad picks. I will give them a little bit of a bump for the 2021 draft as they took Drew Dahlman, who is currently playing for the Chicago Bears, and he is one of the highest paid centers in the league. So I think Drew Dahlman was probably the steal of the draft for their 2021 draft class. And then going into the next year under Terry Fontenot, the second year in his stage as the Atlanta Falcons GM, I do think he had an all right draft. They took Drake London in the first round, who's obviously been an absolute superstar for him. It's been a guy who has looked amazing this year specifically, but he hit 1,000+ yards last year, and he was all right as a rookie. But I mean, he's really like a red zone threat guy. He's got a big body, big frame. He's a superstar tight end now, especially this year because he's broken out big time. So I'll give them that first round pick. Nailed it that year in 2022. Their second round pick, they picked Arnold Edebike, who I don't think is a bad edge rusher. I think he's all right, but through his career, he's had 6 sacks the past 2 seasons as a Falcon. And his whole career with the Falcons, including 4 years, including this season with 12 games, he has a total of 15.5 sacks. I don't think he's a bad edge rusher. I think he's average, and this is a second round pick. So, I mean, I think it's all right production, but this year he's just fallen off a cliff. He only has 1 sack, but I mean, that's kind of understandable. When you go out and draft 2 edge rushers in your most recent draft class, your other edge rusher is not going to produce. So I mean that just makes perfect sense. But as well, there was another second round pick in the 2022 draft that I think is a big bust. Troy Anderson. Troy Anderson has been, in my opinion, a below average linebacker for the 1 year he really played because he's been injury prone the last 2 seasons. I believe he's on the IR already again this year. Um, it's just been this was a bad draft. I mean, two second round picks, and both of them I think aren't going to be on the team next year. As well as this is the draft where they picked Desmond Ritter. Desmond Ritter, who was a third round pick for the Falcons, he was awful. Had a little bit of a bright spot in his first year when he came in late in the season. I mean, 708 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 picks, and not a lot of scoring. But I mean, he was a rookie. They went 2-2 in that season. And then in 2023, when they gave him the keys to the ship, he played 13 games as a starter. He went 6-7. Yes, I'm doing the hand motion. And he threw for 2,836 yards, but he threw 12 touchdowns to 12 picks. So he never looked like anything special. And then that he only spent 2 years here, and then they let him go, and he went to the Raiders, and I believe he's a backup in Arizona now. So yes, third round pick, not a lot of expectations, but when you drafted him and he really was the only quarterback for you, I mean, there's not a lot you can do. They did also have another late round steal in 2022 in Tyler Algier, but Atlanta Falcons fans will tell you that they are very disappointed with how the offense is being ran this year, especially if you play fantasy football, because Tyler Algier is coming in and stealing every single touchdown from Bijan Robinson. But I think it's personally it was a steal the first year they had him. In 2022, he ran as a rookie for 1,035 yards. He didn't really have a lot of touchdowns, but we were not a good team in 2022. But 1,000 yards as a rookie is not bad as a running back. In the next 2 years, he kind of fell off a cliff a little bit, 600 and 600 yards. I mean, 4 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns. But when you draft a first round running back, which I'm going to talk about here in a minute, you're going to fall off as a running back. You're going to be backing him up. And Algier's pretty much just like a red zone guy. And I don't think that we have the offensive coordinator or the coach to run an offense like Detroit last year with Montgomery and Gibbs. We'll go on to the 2023 draft because there's really nobody left in that 2022 draft that's needing to be mentioned. And then the 2023 draft, they selected Bijan Robinson in the first round pick. That was obviously a hit. He's one of, if not the best running backs in the NFL. I just feel a little bit disappointed for him as a Falcons fan because his talent is so. He has such a high potential and he hits it constantly. But because of how our team is coached and because of how our offense is ran, it feels like he's kind of capped. So it just feels like he could have the potential to be a guy who just goes out there, runs 1,600 yards every year, receives for about 400, 500. Like he's that dominant. He's like a Christian McCaffrey in my opinion. He has the potential to be a Christian McCaffrey for his entire career. But we let Tyler Algier run the ball more than I think he should personally. As well as that year, we also selected Matthew Bergeron, offensive lineman. He has actually been really, really good for Atlanta. So it seems like we're hit or miss on our second round picks. So Matthew Bergeron, I think if you go into PFF, he is a top 20 offensive lineman in the league. And I think he's going to get a contract extension. And I think he's pretty good for Atlanta. The only issue is hopefully there's no injuries. But he's one of the top offensive linemen in the league, and I think this was a hit for Atlanta. I think it's absolutely a great pick, and it's one of the very few that Terry Fontenot's made. As well as you go in, there's a third round defensive tackle, Zach Harrison. We drafted him out of Ohio State, and I think he's been all right. I think he's having a career season this year, but again, he got hurt. He had played 7 games this season, and he already had a career high in sacks. This is an inner defensive tackle, so a defensive lineman. He had 4.5 sacks this year in only 7 games, but he got hurt, and he's already on the IR. But I think he was a pretty good pick. He's actually starting to develop this season. So, I mean, I wouldn't cut him straight away or say that he was a bad pick. I just think he started real slow in his career as a third-round pick. But I think he's developing, and I think he could be a guy, if he continues to develop this way and stays healthy, could be a good defensive force for the Atlanta Falcons. as well as a fourth round pick and a secondary guy, Clark Phillips, who I think is decent. Not the best cornerback, not the worst cornerback, but he's a young guy, got speed on there on the corners. He's been hurt, so you can't really judge him. He only played one game this year. He has one career interception, and out of the 2 seasons he played last year. But I mean, he only started 7 games, so he's like a secondary bench guy. Sometimes he'll come in, but I mean, it's like you don't really know what they're going to do with him until they start to use him. That was the 2023 draft because the rest of the guys that are picked either aren't in the league or they're non-talkers. Then you go to the 2024 season, and this is the season where everyone's going to have a lot of issues because the Atlanta Falcons selected Michael Penix Jr. with a first round pick after signing Kirk Cousins to a 4-year, $180 million contract with $90 million guaranteed. So we signed Kirk Cousins on a 4-year deal, on a 4-year contract after he tore his ACL. Now, a lot of fans, including me, were very upset when we did this because we signed him on a year where he played good before he got hurt. Don't get me wrong, he had one of his better statistical, like he was having one of his better statistical years in the Vikings before he got hurt. But we decided to sign a guy who was, I think he was 30, 34, 34, 35 years old. And we signed him on a 4-year, $180 million contract after he tore his ACL. And he came in, and his first year here, he had an awful season. A season where he had the lowest QBR of his career besides his sophomore season, where he was still a backup. But out of his starting seasons, he had the lowest QBR of his career. He had his lowest passer rating of his career as a starter. He had his most interceptions, so a career high in interceptions. And he matched his touchdowns from 2023 playing 6 more games. So he threw 18 touchdowns to 16 interceptions. He threw for 3,508 yards. He had a 67% completion percentage, which is about par for him. There's a few years here and there where he does better, a few years where he does worse. But he was just overall a really bad signing for Atlanta. And this is, I think, 1,000% on Terry Fontenot and Raheem Morris. This was their decision. They wanted out and they wanted to go get a quarterback. But that also brings the conversation, why draft Michael Penix in the first round? Why draft a first round quarterback if you just signed a quarterback who is making $180 million? Also, why draft a quarterback who not only is 24 years old coming out of the draft, but has knee injury issues, has injury issues where he sat out seasons? What's with the thinking process here? And Raheem Morris will come out and he'd say, we just wanted to make sure we had a guy. We just wanted to make sure we have a guy who could back up Kirk Cousins. We were in a situation where we didn't have a backup. That was his excuse for drafting Michael Penix with a first round pick. And not a low first round pick. I think it was a mid first rounder. It's just, it's like I said, this is very frustrating. You picked him with the 8th overall pick. There were other quarterbacks who went later in the draft, and I don't think Penix would have went this high. I don't think Penix would have went 8th overall. And I don't think any fan or anybody watching the draft thought he was. So I think it was just a horrible decision by Terry Fontenot. So this is another big reason why I think they need to cut ties and they need to clean house. Terry Fontenot has been awful. He hits on certain picks, which is like running backs. He's really good with defensive players, which will come up here too. But like he'll miss horribly on certain calls and certain decisions, like signing signing Kirk Cousins and then drafting a quarterback the same year. And Michael Penix has been all right, but you watch him play the game, you don't think Michael Penix is a superstar quarterback. Yeah, he's only played 12 games in 2 seasons, but his second season he was the full-time starter, and he already has another knee issue. And this isn't, don't get me wrong, I liked Michael Penix in college. I liked him in Washington. He's a good quarterback in college, but he's not a superstar guy in Atlanta. And I think that's very obvious with how you watch him play the game. Nine starts, nine touchdowns, three interceptions. He's only thrown for 1,982 yards in this season. His completion percentage is 60%, so it's worse than what Kirk Cousins' completion percentage was for you last year. So he's not more accurate than Cousins. But it's just his QBR, I think, is about it was barely better than Cousins last year. He's an average quarterback right now. And I think it's a big decision to pick a quarterback in the first round, but to pick one with all those negatives and you thought that he could be your guy, it's just mind-boggling. It's head-scratching, and I think it was just an horrible decision. And then you also go look at the draft, and I think they picked a pretty good defender in the second round. Or, well, no, sorry. They picked an okay defender in the second round, who I think could have potential to be a bust if he doesn't develop this season. And Aurora Horrobro. I don't know how to pronounce that last name. I probably butchered it, but he's been His first season, he really didn't do much. I think he got hurt. He only played 8 games. This year, he's played all 12, or he's played 12, and he has 2.5 sacks, 19 total tackles, only one stuff. So, I mean, he's not really been an elite defensive tackle. I mean, you took him in the second round. You're expecting him to do something, and he's not really done a lot. That's all I can really say about him. He's not really done much. And then where it gets really bad is the third round pick for the 2024 draft is Braylon Trice. This is a guy you took in the third round. He's a linebacker. He came out of Washington. You were picking him as well with Michael Penix that year. And you thought he was going to come in and he was going to make a big change to your linebacker room. And this is another instance where the Atlanta Falcons have failed. They selected a linebacker, a la like Troy Anderson, a couple years ago in the draft, and they wanted him to come in and play a big role. And he hasn't recorded a single sack. He's been injury prone his entire time in the NFL, the entire time on the Atlanta Falcons. He was placed on the IR before the season started, and he was placed on the IR a year ago with a knee injury. So I mean, it's not really been. It's another bust of a draft pick. Fontenot hits on certain players, and they're usually high offensive players. And it's always picks that you expect him to do good on. Drake London did good. Bijan, good. And I mean, the only first round pick that he's really fluffed on has been Kyle Pitts, and it's been Michael Penix Jr. And so he's a very 50-50 GM. And in 2025, we had the big issue with where we selected 2 edge rushers, but we also traded a first round pick for an edge rusher. When you go from a season where your first round pick, you traded your first round pick for this upcoming season, and the Atlanta Falcons, we are 4-8. And I understand the need for an edge rusher. You traded another first round pick for another edge rusher. But now look at the situation you're in. You're 4-8. Your backup quarterback is starting against Kirk Cousins. Drake London's hurt. You have nobody else on that receiving corps because there's only Darnell Mooney. Everybody else is pretty much practice squad level guys. I mean, David Sills is catching touchdowns. Kyle Pitts hasn't done nothing for you. Your offensive line is injured too. There's really not a lot going here for the Atlanta Falcons, and I don't think you can blame anybody else besides the management, besides the coaching. I think Raheem Morris has done an awful job with the team. I don't think he coaches them well enough, and I think they get in these situations where every game he's constantly outcoached. There was a time we were watching the 49ers game this year, and it looked like the Falcons had a real chance to win. And then just as the game keeps going on, you see Kyle Shanahan constantly outcoach, constantly outplay call, constantly all throughout the game coach his team better than Raheem Morris. And you even saw that last week against the New York Jets, where the Jets game, the Falcons looked like they were going to win all game long. They looked like they had it in the bag. And then what happens at the very end of the game? They start choking. Raheem Morris starts messing up. You see miscues and play call. I mean, you just see every single aspect of the game. He's being outcoached. And maybe this is a guy who could be a great coordinator. That's why he played under so many legendary minds. Like so many minds in the game that have been to Super Bowls. I mean, Mike Shanahan, Hall of Fame coach, in my opinion. John Gruden, Hall of Fame coach. Yes, I know he's done bad things, but he's a Hall of Fame coach. He won a Super Bowl. Jay Gruden, but I mean, he was a head coach in the league for a long time. He's probably the worst guy he coached under. And then you had Dan Quinn, you had Sean McVay. Like coaches that have been to Super Bowls, coaches that are Hall of Fame legendary minds, he's coached under, and he's failed miserably at being a coach. Failed miserably. They drafted Jalen Walker in the first round with their first round pick. And I think he's been good this year. Don't get me wrong. I think he's been really good for the team. I mean, Jalen Walker, 15th overall. For 15th overall pick, he has 5 sacks, 21 solo tackles. I mean, he puts pressure on the ball. He's forced fumbles. I mean, he's been really good as a rookie edge rusher. And the same thing with Pierce. I think Pierce was worth that first round pick we selected with him. It's the same thing. 5 sacks, puts pressure on the ball. I mean, he's a good edge rusher. Don't get me wrong. I think their selections in the first round this year were good. I think multiple of their selections this year. This was probably their best draft class under Fontenot. But the issue was they picked all defense. In the 4 picks that actually mattered in this draft, they picked Jalen Walker, James Pierce, 2 edge rushers in the first round, really good. Then they picked Xavier Watts, safety out of Notre Dame, who's been pretty good for him. He has 3 interceptions this year. He's been pretty good at the safety spot for him. But also, you already have a safety in Jesse Bates, sorry. But he's been pretty good for him. I mean, I'll give him that. And that's a 3rd round pick. So, I mean, that's pretty much a hit right now. Then Billy Bowman out of Oklahoma. Billy Bowman's been all over the field. If you watch the Atlanta Falcons play before he got hurt, he was playing defensive back, he was playing safety, and he's been good. But now he's on the IR with a torn Achilles. So you don't know how he's going to come back next year. But if, in my opinion, I think that was a hit. I think Billy Bowman's been all around the field. He's been elite. But that's really this is the only draft that I think they've hit on every pick. The only pick that I don't think they hit on was their 7th round pick, which obviously you're taking an offensive lineman in the 7th round. You're not expecting him to play for you. There's just a lot going on with this team, a lot going on with the roster, but I think it's finally time. I think no matter how the record or how the season ends, I think you fire Raheem Morris. I think you fire the offensive coordinator, Zach Robinson. And this is coming from a guy who was an Oklahoma State fan. You got to fire Zach Robinson. He's been disappointing in his 2 years as the offensive coordinator. You got to fire him. I think Jeff Ulbrich is good enough to stay if he wants to stay. I think he's been a good enough defensive mind for the Falcons that I think he stays if they need him to or if they want him to. Don't sign him to be your head coach. Don't make him your head coach. Keep him as your defensive coordinator because that's what he's good at. We don't need another defensive guy like Raheem Morris. Raheem Morris has failed. Arthur Smith was an offensive guy. He failed. If Terry Fontenot keeps his job, he needs to hire a good veteran coach. He cannot go out and hire an unknown guy again. If he not even unknown, he can't go and hire a guy who has not been a head coach in the NFL. If he goes out and hires a guy like Arthur Smith or like Raheem Morris in the other leagues, like if he goes out and hires an offensive coordinator or a defensive coordinator to come and be the head coach for the Atlanta Falcons in 2026, if they let him keep his job, it will more than likely be a death sentence. He will lose his job. This is if they let him keep it. But they need to clean house, and I think it's time. I'd like to say thank you for y'all coming out and listening. I know this is a bit of a long video, especially since it's my first video coming out, but I just needed to vent. The Atlanta Falcons have been god-awful this year, but if you want more videos like this, but about other sports teams, I can go through and look pretty much at any NFL team, any baseball team, any basketball team. Just give me a shout. If you want me to talk about them, I'll talk about them. As always, thank you guys. Like and subscribe.